Hi guys, it's DrayYoutube584. Since 2023 is over now, I'll be going over what my favorite and my least favorite days were from all the different months of 2023. If you've seen my video from November called My Former Daily System, I pointed out that I've been trying to cut back on talking about how my days went, but I still think this is better than giving my top 10 best and worst days. And I'll make it so I'm going to try not to be too negative about the bad days here like I've been before when making my top 10 worst days list. Anyways, let's get started with this. Starting off with January, I'm going with the 6th for my best day. My class took a trip on that day to the movies. The movie we saw was Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. They provided popcorn for all the students, and I also got a Coke-flavored icy to drink. I thought it was nice to get out of school to do something like that, and I enjoyed the movie overall. Now, my least favorite day of the month goes to the 25th. This day had a rough start, and my day at school wasn't the best. Then, while I was at a job transitioning program, I started to have a bit of a nauseous feeling. That night, I had no appetite and I eventually had a vomit attack. I also had a 101-degree fever, and I stayed home from school the rest of the week. I turned out to have a stomach virus, but I lied down in my room and watched the movie Encanto that night. Although the previous month didn't have a good day on the 25th, it was the best day of February 2023. On this day, my mom and I were trying to think of something to do on this day. We finally decided to go to an indoor place where we went on race cars around a track that night, and my stepdad John also went with us. It was my second time going to this place. My first time going here was in September 2018 for my cousin's birthday. I thought it was nice how I went back and did it a second time. My least favorite day of February was 2 days later. I was leaving school, and I'm a part of a special needs program due to my autism, and they leave a few minutes early. But as we were leaving that day, I realized I forgot my coat, so I had to go back to grab it, which meant that I had to leave the school with everyone in the halls. Because of me being on the spectrum, I've always been sensitive to hearing people swear and use profanity, and I heard more of it in the halls this time than I ever had before, which is mostly from one student. What made it particularly difficult for me was that it was the time I had to go back because I forgot something, and I knew I wouldn't have ran into that if I didn't forget my coat. That made it frustrating for me, and I had it put into my head that it was just bad timing. That's why it's not good when I program something into my brain. And my dad told me what I need to do is to trick my mind to think differently when I have something negative put into my head. My best day of March 2023 goes to the 26th. On this day, I went out for lunch with my friend Derek and his girlfriend. We went to a diner together, and Derek gave me the idea to try crab burger. I really enjoyed it, and I decided to get it again later this year when I went to the same restaurant. After we went out to eat, we hung out at my house and played Mario Kart Wii for a little while until they went back home. I also went out to eat on the 22nd of this month, only that day wasn't exactly on par with the 26th. I was looking forward to going out to eat that day, but I unfortunately looked on my Discord that morning, and I found out an internet friend did something that was highly concerning because someone framed him to make it look like he said an awful thing on YouTube. It got me worried to see it, and it ended up leading to a YouTube conflict throughout the day. The problem is that when I feel bad for someone because of what they're going through, like I did on that day, I noticed that oftentimes I intentionally worry about it as much as possible and have it affect my day. I understand that it's good to show compassion for others, but as my mom told me, I tend to take it too personally, which is something for me to work on. My favorite day of April was the 20th. My class took a trip to the zoo on this day. The weather was nice and I liked seeing the animals. Another good vibe I get from this day is that when I was on the way back on the bus, I listened to an album called My Head is an Animal through my earbuds, and I really enjoyed that first listen. If you look up that album name, you'll see what the artist is. It was also the first time I had my piano lesson. I had an interview with the teacher, and then I went to get Chick-fil-A for dinner with my stepdad. It was just an enjoyable day overall. My least favorite day of April was the 24th. I came into school late that day, and a student walking down the hall with a staff member had trouble controlling her anger with another student, and she said something very offensive. It wasn't a nice way to start my day off. It was quite disappointing that my school day started off like that, and it threw off my mood. I understand that I shouldn't be so concerned about what others are doing if it doesn't affect me, but it's something that I have been working on. On my favorite day of May, I had the best day of the month for the same reason as my best day in May 2022. It was on the 11th this time. I went to a place where I had a formal dance like the year before, and I had a great time once again. After we gave the awards for the seniors who were graduating, we had our dinner there, and then I hung out with my friends there and danced with them. I even took a picture of myself in the mirror and put it on my Instagram. We all had a fun time that night. My least favorite day of May was another day I got sick this year. It was on the 30th. I got strep throat on this day. My throat started to hurt the night before, and I felt it the most in the morning. My body also felt sore in the morning, which was mostly in the back. I tried to hide how I was feeling when I went to school, but I eventually went to the nurse's office and I got picked up to go home. It took a few days before I fully recovered, but the doctor gave me an antibiotic when I went to see her, and it helped with my throat and the symptoms I was having. My favorite day of June was also my best day of 2023 in general. It was the 16th. I went to my third concert on this day, and it was my best one, considering it was an artist I already liked a lot of music from this time. It was Billy Joel. We went to see him at the Lincoln Financial Field. I had an amazing time at the concert, and I heard every song that I was looking for. Not to mention, we also got to see Stevie Nicks as an opening artist. To make this day even better, it was my first day of summer break, which also made it the first official day that I was a senior in high school. It was just an awesome day overall. I thought the month of June 2023 was overall a great month, and definitely my best month of the year. Throughout the month, I felt like everything was good, but I still had a stressful day this month, and it was the 6th. What happened on this day was that I went to a steak restaurant with my Aunt Dottie and my maternal grandmother, and I got overwhelmed with something I was thinking about that was giving me pressure. I started panicking in the restaurant, and we ended up leaving with her food. I wasn't comfortable explaining what happened, but I eventually explained to my mom that night through text. She told me that she thinks I really got in my own head. This is why living in my mind is an unhealthy habit, which is something my dad told me, and it's unnecessary to get myself worked up over things like this. Like in June, my best day of July was also the 16th. On this day, I went to Hard Rock Hotel in Atlantic City with my mom and my Aunt Dottie, and we slept there. We walked through the casino when we first got there, and we got burgers from this place that makes them really good. After that, we went swimming in the pool for a little while. We also got ice cream that night from an ice cream bar. And then we stayed in our rooms and played games in there. It was an enjoyable, memorable experience. My least favorite day of the month was the 9th. I went to see my family for my cousin Lily's 10th birthday at her house. While I was there, my 4-year-old cousin Ellie screamed at the top of her lungs because she was scared of the dog. I got agitated by it because the noise was a trigger for me, and I needed to go outside to cool off. It threw my mood off for a little while after I heard that. Overall, there was too much going on at the house for me, and we considered taking me back home. But I ended up staying because I wanted to ask my family a question for a video, so I stayed. Things seemed to get better, and I did fine the rest of the day. Like with May, my best day of August 2023 was for the same reason as my best day of August 2022. It was the 26th this year. Like on that day, I went to the boardwalk in Ocean City, only this time I went with my mom. And I went with my dad the year before. We had a nice time there. We started off by going to a pizza restaurant where we got 4 different kinds of pizza. Once the rides opened, we went on some of them, including Double Shot, Gale Force, Extreme Cyclone, and a few others. We went back home later in the day, but we enjoyed our time there and the weather was also nice. But the day 2 days later happened to be my least favorite day of the month. This was another day when I was sensitive to hearing profanity. That evening, I went to a meeting at a house with a group of men that my dad sees regularly. What happened was that I was hearing a lot of language at one point, and I felt like I could handle it. But when one of the guys said a swear word with a louder tone of voice, it became too much for me. And like what happened the previous month, I needed to take a moment to step outside and calm down. I also talked to my dad about how it made me feel. Although I had a hard evening, I at least went to a sushi place for lunch that day, and I enjoyed going there. I had a good Labor Day this year, which was on the 4th. I had a barbecue at my paternal grandparents', and my family came over to go swimming. I also invited my friend Derek over to hang out with, and he met my 5-year-old cousin who I see all the time. We had a good time hanging out with each other. It was also the first time we used a water slide that my grandfather set up. We all had fun using it, and we went down 3 different ways. We started off the normal way, then we were going down head first, and finally we were going down it backwards. The month of September 2023 didn't have the best day to end it off though, and you know what day I'm talking about. Here's what happened on the 30th. You know my 5-year-old cousin that I just mentioned previously. He sleeps over to hang out with me now on weekends that I stay at my paternal grandparents' house. But on this day, he came over while I was napping at 4 in the afternoon, and he wanted to play with me right away. It was too stressful for me because I just woke up, and I got moody as a result. I came out of the bedroom to explain to his mom how I felt, and my cousin thought I was mad at him, and I made him cry. It made me feel terrible. The good thing is that my night was an improvement from my afternoon. I had several days when I did something cool in October, but I decided to go with the 14th for the best day in October, which was just 4 days after my 18th birthday. I've never been to my school's homecoming before, and although I felt unsure about it, I felt like I had to go this time because it's my senior year. I made a good memory out of it. I considered getting picked up early because of how hectic it was getting, but I ended up staying for almost the entire thing. I saw some students I knew, and we said hi to each other, and I danced to some of the songs as well. I also put a picture of myself and what I wore to the dance on my Instagram. My least favorite day was 1 week later, on the 21st. This was a day that I was having an obsessive thought relating to something at school, about something I was discontented with. I had that thought a lot from September to November 2023, but this is the day I was affected the most by it. I felt uncomfortable talking about it with anyone, but the good thing is that I explained it to my parents a little over a month after this day through a text message, and it helped a lot with it the day I did that. I realize more now that if I feel a certain way, I can talk to the people around me about it, and I shouldn't feel awkward doing so. My favorite day of November 2023 happened to be the first day. My Uncle Jim's nephew played as Frankenstein for a Halloween play at his high school. I went to see it that night, and it was pretty cool. I went to a musical in July 2023 for Finding Nemo, but this was the first regular play I saw in the theater. I went there in the car with my Uncle Jimmy, which is a different uncle, and we had a nice time talking to each other, and it caused us to come up with the idea to hang out sometime after that. My least favorite day this month was the 25th. The night before, we went inside Wendy's and we sat down while waiting for food. I'm guessing that my AirPods fell out of my pocket there, because on this day, I checked everywhere I could imagine for them, and I couldn't find them. It drove me crazy, and I got angry at myself for losing them. It was a frustrating and confusing situation for me. I never ended up finding them, so we bought new AirPods shortly after. I just gotta remember to be careful of where I put things, and if I misplace something, I should stay calm and not get myself worked up, especially if it's something that can easily be replaced, like AirPods. Now we've made it all the way to December. I would say my best day was Christmas Eve. On that day, I went to see my family for Christmas at my Uncle Matt's house, and as usual on Christmas Eve, we had lasagna for dinner. It was nice to meet with everyone again, and for my family question, I asked everyone what the best Christmas gift they've ever given someone was. My least favorite day of the month was the 8th. Something good I did on this day was that I went to a restaurant with the girlfriend of my Uncle Ronnie and my little cousin on my dad's side of the family. But when we were walking in a store after, I heard a young man playing vulgar rap music very loudly in their car. I was in a bad state of mind after I heard it. I got cranky and I went on a continuous rant that I couldn't get a break from hearing that kind of music. I needed to talk to my paternal grandmother to calm down. And every year of my life, including this year, a lot of the hard days I've had, such as this one and some of the other ones in this video, had to do with someone doing or saying something that bothered me. I'm starting to realize that there's no point in dwelling on something someone said or did if it's already done with, and I shouldn't think too much about what they did. There you go. I hope you all enjoyed this video. As for this year so far, I was feeling off throughout January. January 5th, 2024 really was not a good day. In 2023, my worst days honestly weren't as bad as the days from all the previous years of my life, which was partly because I got better at handling things. But that day I mentioned from this year was just a bad day throughout. But it's over now. And I'd like to say that with it being my senior year in high school, I'm looking forward to having a lot of great days this year. Bye, guys.